Hi class, in this video I want to cover the use of a figure or table or graph or some sort of visual. You're required to include two in your paper, your literature review paper, and I know that a number of you, even though you watched the video on how to do it, are still feeling a little bit foggy about this particular requirement of the paper. So in order to do that, I am using the sample literature review that I had attached in your Monday memo from just this past Monday, from April 8th. So now I just need to make a note that at this point in time, this assignment, only one figure or table was required, and you need to do two. You need to include two. So the point of this, including this particular feature, is for you to learn how to do it. That's the same reason why I'm including the abstract, is so that you will learn how to write an abstract and where to place it within an APA formatted paper. I just want to back up and say, and this is what I always tell my seated classes, is that remember, English 111 and 112 are places for you to learn those skills, those writing skills that are supposed to help you later in your college career. So this is all practice, and so it's important that you get some experience learning how to include some sort of visual in your paper, because you'll need to do this in the future. All right. So let's just, in fact, go over the whole format of the paper and how it should look, and just sort of talk about this. So for an APA styled paper, note that the number is, the page number begins here at this, on the first title page. So you're going to have to go into your header and put in your page number here in the upper right corner, just like in MLA, but you don't have your last name. All right? So that is the first thing that is different. The second thing is, yes, you have a title page, and your title page has this information. It has the title of your paper about a third of the way down, and it is bolded. Then your name, your college, the course, my name, and the date that it is due. All right. The second thing that you will have in your paper is your abstract. Now, we will worry about the abstract. I will give a little video on doing an abstract probably tomorrow or Monday. And the reason I'm pushing this back is because the abstract is something that gets completed after the paper is fully written. It is a summary of your paper. You can't write an abstract until you've written your paper, because it is essentially a summary of what you have written. Not what you're going to write, but what you actually have written. So we are going to hold off on the abstract discussion until the next video. All right. So now, your paper actually begins on page 3. Your paper is going to be organized and formatted as such. You'll start with your title in the middle of, centered in the top of your page, 1-inch margins, 12 times Roman 12-point font, just like with MLA. Your title is going to be bolded. You won't have introduction. You're going to have the title of your paper. So then you'll have your introduction, which will be 1 to 2 paragraphs. That introduction needs to, what it really needs to do is explain why this research topic is valid, valuable, timely, why we should think about it, and why we should care about it. You probably are going to reference sources within your paper, within your introduction, just as the student does. And then your introduction concludes with your thesis statement. Thesis statements for literature review papers are very plainly written. They're meant to be plainly written so that the reader of the paper has a very clear idea about what the problem that the paper is addressing, what is the research question, and what 3 areas are being reviewed in this literature review. So in this case, we have a thesis statement that goes as such. The purpose of this literature review is to look at how scientists are currently studying the factors driving the use of CAM. Now the students already explained what CAM, what that acronym stands for up here, within cancer patients. So there's the first theme or concept or area, the lack of knowledge surrounding CAM, and third, the growing interest in scientific studies of CAM. So this thesis statement is very plain, it's very clear. We understand what this research question is, and we understand the 3 areas of organization. So the student then proceeds with the first concept and organizes this particular paper just like that's just like the Life on Mars paper was organized, wherein you have your first research article, your first source, summarized as it addresses the factors driving the use of CAM within cancer patients, with in-text quotes being used, which is why it's so important for you all to do those practice worksheets and learn about in-text quoting, and I'll come back to that at the end of this video. Then the second source that falls within this concept. Remember, you defined your concepts when you did your synthesis table. And then finally, the synthesis paragraph that discusses the 2 articles in relationship to one another. And this is a really well done synthesis paragraph, so I would pay attention to it. The student writer in this case very clearly signals that, oh, this is going to be my synthesis paragraph, because they write the 2 sources both discuss the reasons as to why cancer patients turn to CAM to fight cancer. And then the student goes on to explain how they are similar in this particular topic. So then we move to the second concept, same principle. Student explains the article, the first article, and you notice it's the same article as this particular subject. That's fine. That's quite plausible. Only this summary is going to cover the lack of knowledge. So this summary is going to summarize how this source discussed the lack of knowledge surrounding CAM. So it's going to focus specifically on this particular research article's way they addressed the lack of knowledge. Same thing, second article that was discussing the lack of knowledge surrounding CAM, and then the synthesis paragraph. And then the third concept gets discussed. And in this case, here is where the student decides that they're going to include the table. So the student references this table here. So when the student is discussing this particular source, Wu et al. 2017, the student decides that this is where the student says, I'd like to include a table to demonstrate what I'm explaining in my summary. Okay, so this is the article again. Remember, this is for practice for you all. So this is mostly for practice. So you're going to pick a table or a graph or something from one of your 6 sources that does a good job giving a visual explanation of something that you discuss in your paper. Okay, so this student said, okay, I'm going to pick a particular chart a particular table that, in this case, the student explains it right here. Wu et al. 2017 discussed the latest breast cancer treatment and how nanomedicine currently fares in the clinical setting, the significant breast cancer nanomedicine trends, other breast cancer treatment trends such as passive and active cancer cell targeting, and the main obstacles in cancer drug therapy and how nanomedicine can assist in handling those obstacles in Table 1 on the following page. All right, so this student said, I like this table that I found on page 5885. I'm going to include it in my literature review in the appropriate section. So the student explains and references this table, discusses it, explains it, includes the name of the table, Table 1, because it's renamed to be Table 1, even though it was probably Table 22 or something in the original article, because it's the only table, it's the first table, in this case the only table, included in this paper. So you're going to rename it Table 1, and you're going to tell me in words where does it occur in your paper. So in this case it's on the following page, and give the original page number of that table. Alright, so now we're going to flip to the following page. Here we go. Here is Table 1. This is the video, the result of this student watching the very same video I included for y'all. So you're renaming it Table 1. You will bold Table 1. If it was graph, you would call it Graph 1 or Graph 2. Table 1, if you have one table and one graph, you'll have Table 1 and Graph 1. Then you include, probably a screenshot is the easiest way to, pick up that information. You'll include the screenshot, and you can see that's what the student actually has done here. Then below the actual graphic, the table, you need to include a little bibliographic note. This is something like an endnote or a footnote, but it goes right below your visual. It's a smaller font. It's a different font, in fact. It's supposed to be something like Calibri, as we see up here. So you're going to include all the bibliographic information for this article in this particular format. So you will have note, and then you will have a colon, and then you will use the word from. Then you will include the article in quotation marks. You will then use the word, have a little comma, by, and then include your article or your authors, comma, the name of the journal, italicized, comma, the volume, italicized, comma, and then P for page number and the page number it came from. Then you need to include in parentheses the DOI or URL number, and then you need to include the copyright number. You can find the copyright number on the PDF of your article. You might need to scroll to the very bottom of the article. Sometimes it's at the very beginning of the article. So you'll need to do a little searching to try to find that copyright year. All right. Then finally, you want to include the conclusion and your reference page. And as you can see, this student's paper is 10 full pages, and yours will be probably more like 11 to 12 pages because you have to include 2 graphics. And then, as you can see, a properly APA formatted reference page that's alphabetized using hanging indent and all the proper APA formatting that we learned. All right, one more thing. What I want you to look through too when you go and look at this particular sample paper is to see how the student used all the parenthetical references. You practiced that practice worksheet, which is due on Friday, April 12th. You want to make sure that you include the author's name, if it's more than two, if it's two or more authors, it's going to be author's name, the first one listed, then et al., which literally means and others, the date, and then the page number where your information comes from. So the thing to remember, if you remember that worksheet, there are three bits of information that included. It's authorial information, publication date, and pages. So author and date always stay together. They're a couple. They never separate. They always stay together. So if you include the author's name in the signal phrase, you want to be sure to follow up with the publication date in parentheses directly after, and then the page number comes at the very end of the paraphrase or quote. Okay, so that's a good example of seeing how the author's name with the publication date gets used as part of the signal phrase with the page number coming at the end. All right, any other questions, feel free to email.